Please join me in Gassho. Those who feel uncertain of birth should say the Nembutsu, aspiring first for their own birth. Those who feel that their own birth is completely settled should, mindful of the Buddha's benevolence, hold the Nembutsu in their hearts and say it to respond in gratitude to that benevolence with the wish, may there be peace in the world and may the Buddha's teachings spread. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Greetings. I cannot believe it's mid-December already, with 2021 just around the corner, a couple of weeks away. This past year, we have seen devastating fires up in NorCal and in Australia. We're continuing to experience a deadly pandemic that to date has taken the lives of over 1.6 million people worldwide. Over 300,000 of those deaths occurred here in the US alone. And of course, we've also seen a major social justice movement grow as it opposes systemic racism. And at the same time, we've endured distressing political fractures, leading to threats of and actual violence occurring. Someone recently very wisely said that this year, our baseline is trauma. And given that observation, I find myself even more grateful for those who are stepping up to meet the moment, like our BCSF board, who continues to meet virtually, moving the temple forward with responsible stewardship. Our ministers' assistants, who are ensuring the continuity of our ongoing religious services. Our supervising minister, Reverend Henry Adams, who continues to provide wise counsel to the board and to our MAP team, while offering invaluable support by way of memorials for those whose loved ones have passed. I'm also deeply grateful for the BCSF members and friends who are volunteering in a variety of ways that foster care and connection with our Sangha. And if I allow my perspective to widen, I see within our larger community a remarkable flow of compassion, often expressed in selfless action. I am being supported and sustained by unseen and seen compassionate activity. A Shin friend and priest recently described Amida as the activity of the Dharma. And a professor priest working at the Honganji said during a lecture a couple years ago that Amida is the Buddha's wish for all beings to attain liberation. So Shinran, with his keen awareness of his human limitations, was an advocate for reliance on other power, the power of Amida made manifest in the primal vow in order to attain liberation. But what does that look like? And how do I entrust myself to that? Reverend Tai Tietso Uno once described it as floating in the ocean. It's not my own power that I float. In fact, when I exert my own power and struggle to stay above water, I inevitably sink. It is only when I let go of my own power, my own self-calculation, that I am able to float. And it is by virtue of the ocean itself that my floating is even possible. In the same way, I live my life by virtue of that ocean of great compassion, the ocean of Amida's vow, that expansive and limitless ocean. Shinran used the ocean metaphor many times, many times in his writings, describing the Nembutsu as the treasure ocean of virtues that is true reality, and the ocean of the wisdom vow, the Buddha of unhindered light. And this suchness, this oneness pervades the countless worlds. It fills the hearts and minds of the ocean of all beings. So just as the various waters enter the ocean and immediately become seawater, so too the waters of the mind, both the virtuous and the foolish, all become the mind of great compassion. Last night, I was humbled to participate in a vigil called the Annual Homeless Persons Memorial 2020. It's billed as an interfaith or no faith memorial hosted by the San Francisco Night Ministry and Skywatchers and the San Francisco Interfaith Council to remember those who have died this year while living on our San Francisco streets. And due to the COVID-19 restrictions, the evening's vigil, which was held outside of City Hall in the plaza, was attended only by the participants following strict safety protocols. But it was live streamed via Facebook so that people who would have usually attended could watch and safely remember and mourn their friends via their phones, wherever they might be. Skywatcher is a wonderful organization that brings residents of the San Francisco Tenderloin District into partnership with professional artists, created these beautiful individual white banners with the names of every person being honored, painted on each one. During the vigil, I had the privilege of striking a large bell after each name was read. I struck the bell 342 times. The reading of the names were interspersed with prayers offered from different spiritual traditions: Native American, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, and Buddhist. Mira, the person who offered the Buddhist prayer, chose to share the beautiful metta, loving kindness prayer. So in silence, in prayer, and in song, 342 individuals were remembered, were honored, and were mourned. All 342 unhoused people had names, had faces, had hopes and desires, had dreams and stories. The reading of the names initially, they reminded me of our Schutzke Hoyle monthly memorials. Except this annual memorial is not normal, nor should it be normalized. This memorial is a sad but necessary tradition that I hope will end one day when people are no longer dying on our cold city streets. So many deaths could have been prevented. On my drive home, I wondered, how can we as a nation, as a city, let this unnecessary suffering continue? How many more must die unsheltered on the cold, harsh streets of this very rich city? And each year, the number has risen. We read over 100 more names this year than last year. And yes, our baseline is trauma, but only when we're aware of the suffering. When I came home, I went right to my altar, my heart full with gratitude for the opportunity to have participated in this very moving vigil. But mostly my heart was heavy with the weight of all those who suffered during their life on the street. I sat quietly, and out came the Nembutsu. It wasn't forced, and it wasn't suppressed. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo, I surrender to, I entrust in Amida Butsu, the true reality of the precious impermanence and profound interdependence. As Reverend David Matsumoto has written, when we entrust in that vow, when we awaken to the boundless wisdom and compassion of life, then we will see no difference between ourselves and others. We will realize the interconnectedness of all beings. When others suffer, we will suffer. Our happiness can only exist in the happiness of all. This is what the Buddha teaches. So when we entrust in something other than our own self-concern, a readjustment occurs, a radical shift in perspective of how we view ourselves and the world in which we live. And it is out of this perspective that gratitude and compassion arise. Please join me in Gasho to hear the words of Shinran once again from letter number 2 as found in the collected works of Shinran. Those who feel uncertain of birth should say the Nembutsu, aspiring first for their own birth. Those who feel that their own birth is completely settled should, mindful of the Buddha's benevolence, hold the Nembutsu in their hearts and say it to respond in gratitude to that benevolence with the wish, may there be peace in the world and may the Buddha's teaching spread. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namondos. 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 Please stay safe and stay healthy and stay connected.